The American Express card made a sound like failure. Sharp electronic final. Diane Harper stood at the Starbucks counter on West 42nd Street, her $1,000 Armani suit suddenly feeling like costume jewelry, and watched the barista swipe again. Black card, unlimited credit, the kind that opened doors to private jets and closed-door meetings with senators. Declined. She pulled out her backup Visa. The machine beeped its judgment. Behind her, 12 people deep into Monday morning commutes began the restless shuffle of the condemned. Someone sighed loud enough to be a statement. The barista, a kid named Marcus, according to his name tag, looked at her with something between pity and impatience. Maybe the chip's damaged. Want to try one more? 3 more cards emerged from her Prada wallet. 3 more electronic rejections. The universe apparently had a sense of humor. $420 million in net worth, and Diane Harper couldn't buy a $5 coffee. Heat crawled up her spine, not embarrassment exactly, but something close to it. Rage at the inconvenience, fury at the public spectacle. Her bank had probably frozen everything due to the Singapore wire transfers this morning. Fraud protection. She'd meant to call them. There hadn't been time. A hand reached past her shoulder. Weathered, knuckles scarred from work that left marks. It held a crumpled $10 bill that looked like it had survived a war. "I got it." The voice came quiet, almost apologetic. Diane turned. The man wore a Navy security uniform with a Harper Technologies badge clipped to his chest. Building security. She'd walk past him every morning for how long? 6 months a year, never really seeing him, just another piece of the architecture that made her world function. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and completely calm. They looked at her without deference or hostility. Just looked like she was another problem to assess, another system to understand. "That's not necessary." The words came out sharper than intended. "Just coffee." He handed the 10 to Marcus before she could protest further. The line behind them exhaled collective relief. Marcus made change. The security guard ordered black coffee, size small, the cheapest thing on the menu. They stood at the pickup counter in awkward proximity while Marcus worked the espresso machine. "I'll pay you back," Diane managed. He glanced at her, something that might have been amusement flickering across his face. "Everyone has bad days. Don't worry about it." Marcus called their orders. They reached for their cups simultaneously, and Diane caught details she'd missed in her initial panic. The man's hands were tools, not accessories. Calloused, strong, built from years of work that required precision and care. He wore no wedding ring, but the pale band of skin on his left hand told a story she didn't have time to read. "You work at Harper Technologies." Not a question. "Night shift mostly. You wouldn't know me." The presumption irritated her, mostly because it was accurate. "I know everyone who works for me." His mouth quirked, not quite a smile. "Sure you do." Then he was gone, walking out into the Manhattan morning with his $2 coffee, leaving Diane standing with a $5 latte and the uncomfortable realization that she'd just been taught a lesson by her own security guard. Her phone buzzed. Lauren Pierce, her CFO, and the only person from Harvard who'd stayed loyal through 3 hostile takeover attempts. "Board meeting in 45. Richard's asking questions about Q4 projections. Bring armor." Diane typed back one-handed while navigating toward the exit. "Always do." But the armor felt thinner than usual. The coffee hected wrong. And as she slid into the back of the town car that had been circling the block, Diane caught herself thinking about weathered hands and storm cloud eyes and the particular weight of owing someone $5 you couldn't pay. The thought followed her all the way to the 43rd floor. 15 years designing guidance systems for $800 million satellites teaches you certain things. Precision matters. Failure is measured in catastrophic loss. And sometimes the smallest error, a miscalculation of 0.001 degrees, means your work burns up on re-entry instead of reaching orbit. Cole Bennett understood failure intimately. The subway rattled through Brooklyn's intestines, carrying him home from a shift that had started at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. 8 hours checking ID badges. 8 hours watching people flow past him like water around a stone. 8 hours thinking about the fact that he used to write code that put hardware in space, and now he made sure drunk executives didn't wander into restricted floors. The train's rhythm was hypnotic. Sleep pulled at him, but Cole kept his eyes open, watching his reflection in the dark window. 34 years old, face that had seen weather, hair going gray at the temples faster than it should. His father had gone gray at 30, his grandfather at 28. The Bennett men aged like they were running out of time. Maybe they were. The accident played behind his eyes in fragments. Red taillights, Rachel's laugh cutting off mid-sentence, the sound of metal folding like paper, Lily screaming from the back seat until she wasn't screaming anymore. Just silence and smoke, and the particular smell of engine coolant mixing with blood. Cole blinked it away. 3 years. 3 years, and his brain still insisted on replaying those 30 seconds every time he let his guard down. Grant called it PTSD. Cole called it penance. The train lurched to his stop. He climbed stairs that smelled like piss and desperation emerged into afternoon sunlight that felt too bright. Brooklyn spread around him in all its grimy glory bodegas, with barred windows, check-cashing places, bail bondsmen who knew everyone by name. This wasn't the Brooklyn that tech bros and lifestyle bloggers wrote about. This was the Brooklyn where people worked 2 jobs and still couldn't make rent. PS 234 looked like every other public school built in the 70s. Brick and chain link and the faint scent of institutional cafeteria food. Cole joined the cluster of parents and nannies waiting for the 3 o'clock dismissal. Some of them he recognized. Travis Mitchell, another single dad, threw him a nod. Mrs. Rodriguez from his building, a handful of mothers who'd stopped trying to make conversation after Cole made it clear he wasn't looking for companionship. The doors opened. Children poured out in a wave of backpacks and noise. Emma appeared near the middle of the pack, smaller than most of the other 8-year-olds, dark hair escaping from the ponytail he'd attempted this morning. She spotted him and her whole face transformed. "Dad, we learned about pterosaurs today." Cole caught her in a hug that was tighter than necessary. She felt impossibly fragile in his arms. Too small, too breakable. "You hungry?" "My stomach's been growling all day." She pulled back, grinning. "Did you get mammoth meat?" "Fresh out, just chicken nuggets." "Close enough." They walked home through streets Cole knew by heart. Past the bodega where Mr. Chen gave Emma free candy. Past the laundromat where they'd spent Sunday afternoons when the building's machines broke. Past the corner where a kid had been shot 6 months ago, flowers and teddy bears still marking the spot like a shrine to bad choices. Emma coughed, wet rattling the sound of a chest full of fluid that shouldn't be there. Cole stopped walking, listening to her breathe, counting heartbeats that came too fast. Her ventricular septal defect meant her heart worked twice as hard to pump blood. The hole in the wall between chambers made every beat inefficient, made every breath an effort her body couldn't sustain forever. "You okay, Bug?" "Fine." But she was breathing harder now, aware of his attention. 12 months, maybe 18 if they were lucky. After that, Emma needed surgery. $80,000. Cole had $4,700 in savings. The math didn't work. The math had never worked. Every night he lay awake doing calculations that ended in the same place his daughter dying because he couldn't afford to save her. Diane's office occupied the northwest corner of Harper Technologies Tower, floor 43, with windows that showed Manhattan laid out like a circuit board. The view had cost extra. Everything in her life cost extra. But when you were 26 and your father died of a heart attack at his desk, leaving you a $2 million company and a note that said, "Don't let them tell you you can't," you learned to pay for what mattered. She'd built the company to $420 million in 12 years. Done it while men twice her age called her princess in meetings and asked if she needed help understanding the quarterly reports. Done it alone because everyone she'd ever dated wanted 2 things: her money or her connections, sometimes both, never just her. Lauren appeared in the doorway without knocking. Privilege of 16 years of friendship. "I looked into your security guard." "I didn't ask you to." "No, but you were thinking about it." Lauren set her tablet on the desk. "You're going to want to see this." The file opened to a resume that made Diane's chest tighten. Cole Bennett, MIT, dual degrees in electrical engineering and computer science, summa cum laude. 15 years at aerospace defense contractors doing work classified enough that half the resume was redacted. 4 registered patents. The kind of credentials that should have led to a career trajectory ending in VP of engineering somewhere important. Then nothing. 3 years of empty space where a brilliant career should have continued. "Keep reading," Lauren said quietly. The police report loaded like accusation. Route 87, upstate New York, 3 years and 4 months ago. Truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. Head-on collision. Two fatalities, Rachel Bennett, age 35, elementary school teacher. Lily Bennett, age 7, second grade. One survivor. Emma Bennett, age 5, transported to Albany Medical Center with multiple fractures and internal injuries. Driver Cole Bennett walked away without a scratch. The hospital records followed. Emma's ventricular septal defect diagnosed during the trauma workup. A hole in her heart that had probably been there since birth, undetected until the accident forced doctors to look closely. Current medical debt, $47,000. Projected surgery costs $80,000 to $120,000. Current insurance, catastrophic, only $5,000 deductible, 30% copay after. Lauren's voice cut through the spreadsheet of suffering. He quit his job the day after the funeral. Spent 3 years being a full-time father. Diane sat back, feeling something uncomfortable bloom in her chest. Guilt, she realized. She'd dismissed this man as just another uniform, another piece of security infrastructure. Meanwhile, he'd sacrificed everything for his daughter. There's more. Lauren pulled up another file. 8 months ago, he applied for a senior security analyst position here. More than qualified. Salary $92,000, full medical benefits. Would have covered his daughter's surgery completely. What happened? Richard Vance personally blocked it. Lauren pointed at the notation in the system. Employment gap unexplained. Son in psychological treatment. Wife deceased. Flagged as psychological instability risk. Do not hire under any circumstances. The words sat on the screen like an indictment. Richard Harrington, her COO, had looked at a grieving father with a sick child and decided he was too risky. Had prevented a qualified candidate from getting a job that would have provided the medical care that might save his daughter's life, because of an employment gap spent being a parent. Find Cole Bennett's phone number, Diane heard herself say. I want him in my office tomorrow at 2. Lauren's eyebrow arched. You're going to offer him a job. I'm going to fix a mistake. The Aston Martin Valkyrie sat in Harper Technologies' executive garage like a sleeping predator. $3 million of carbon fiber and exotic metals, painted midnight blue so deep it looked like liquid sapphire. One of only 150 made worldwide. Diane had waited 18 months for delivery. She'd driven it for 6 weeks, and now it refused to start. The garage air smelled like concrete and expensive fuel. Her personal mechanic, a man named Douglas, who charged $300 an hour, straightened from under the hood with defeat written across his face. I can't diagnose it, Ms. Harper. The electrical system is failing, but none of my equipment can isolate why. You need a specialist. You're a specialist. I specialize in million-dollar sports cars. This is... He gestured at the Valkyrie like it had personally offended him. This is Formula One technology in streetcar packaging. The electronics alone are more complex than most aircraft. I'm sorry, but I'm out of my depth. Diane pulled out her phone, called her assistant Jennifer. Find me the best high-performance automotive shop in Seattle. Import specialists. European and Japanese. I don't care about cost. Jennifer's response came hesitant. There's Sullivan's Automotive in the Industrial District. 5-star reviews. They specialize in... Send me the address and have the car towed there immediately. An hour later, Diane stood in a waiting room that smelled like motor oil and old rubber, surrounded by plastic chairs that looked like they'd survived 3 decades, and coffee that smelled like it had been brewed during the Reagan administration. Through the smudged window separating the waiting area from the service bay, she could see her Valkyrie surrounded by men in coveralls who moved around it with the careful reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. Ms. Harper. The man approaching her was in his 50s, built like someone who'd spent his life lifting heavy things. His coveralls had Sullivan stitched across the chest. He wiped his hands on the rag before extending one. Frank Sullivan, I own the place. Diane looked at the offered hand like it might contaminate her, then back at his face. My car. Can you fix it or not? If Frank was offended, his weathered face didn't show it. We're running diagnostics now. The Valkyrie's electrical architecture is derived from Aston Martin's racing program. It's not something you can just, I don't need the Wikipedia entry. I need a timeline. Best guess 3 days, maybe 4. Unacceptable. I need it tomorrow. Frank's expression didn't change. Then you need a miracle, not a mechanic. The words hit like a slap. Diane wasn't accustomed to being told no, especially not by men in coveralls who worked in garages that needed new signage. Then find me someone who can deliver both. Frank studied her for a long moment, the kind of look that suggested he was deciding if she was worth the hassle. Usually her money made the decision for people. I've got a new guy. Started 2 weeks ago. Doesn't talk much, keeps to himself, but I've never seen anyone read a system like him. Not just cars, any system. It's like he can see through metal. I don't care if he's psychic. Can he fix my car? Honestly, Frank rubbed his jaw. If anyone can do it on your timeline, it's him. Point me to him. Frank gestured toward the far corner of the service bay. Bay 7, name's Cole Bennett. The name registered like an electric shock. But Diane's face remained impassive as she walked into the service bay, her heel clicking against concrete with military precision. Men looked up from their work, then quickly looked away when they met her eyes. She had that effect on people. Bay 7 was in the back corner, partially hidden behind a Mercedes elevated on a lift. The lighting was dimmer here, and for a moment Diane thought it was empty. Then she saw him. Cole Bennett lay underneath a Ford pickup truck that looked older than she was. American-made, probably 20 years old, held together more by faith than engineering. All she could see were his legs covered in faded jeans with actual holes from wear and work boots and that had seen better years. A rolling creeper allowed him to slide in and out from under the chassis. The sound of a ratchet echoed rhythmically from beneath the truck. "Excuse me." The ratcheting didn't stop. "Excuse me," louder this time. Still nothing. The sound continued steady and unconcerned. Diane Harper was not accustomed to being ignored. In her world, people jumped when she entered a room. They certainly didn't keep working on pickup trucks that probably weren't worth the cost of the repair. She walked closer, her patience never her strong suit, evaporating like water on hot metal. She could hear him breathing under there, the steady rhythm of someone completely absorbed in their work. "Are you deaf or just rude?" She nudged the creeper with her foot. Not quite a kick, but close enough. The ratcheting stopped. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, deliberately, the creeper rolled out from under the truck. The first thing she noticed was his hands covered in grease that had worked into every line and crease, turning fingertips black. Mechanic's hands. Working hands. The same hands that had paid for her coffee this morning. The second thing she noticed was recognition dawning in those dark brown eyes, followed immediately by something that might have been resignation. Cole sat up on the creeper, wiping his hands on a rag that was already beyond salvation. "Can I help you?" His voice was exactly as she remembered. Quiet, measured. The kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to be heard, and completely, utterly calm. "Are you Cole Bennett?" "I am. Frank Sullivan says you're good with complex electrical systems." Frank says a lot of things. Diane felt heat rising in her chest. Anger, yes, but something else too. Something she didn't have a name for. "Are you or aren't you?" Cole stood up from the creeper, and Diane realized he was tall, maybe 6'1", with the kind of lean build that came from actual physical work rather than expensive gym memberships. He studied her with those unsettling calm eyes. "Depends on the system." Aston Martin Valkyrie, complete electrical failure. Diagnostic computers can't find the fault. Can you fix it, or should I stop wasting my time? For the first time, something flickered in those dark eyes. Interest, maybe, or challenge. The Valkyrie uses a hybrid system derived from Aston Martin's racing program. The electrical architecture is integrated with the V12 and the battery pack through a central control unit that manages power distribution across 17 separate systems. When it fails, it's usually not the system itself. It's a cascade effect from a single point of failure that diagnostics miss because they're looking at trees instead of the forest. Diane blinked. That was more technical detail than she'd expected, and approximately 17 more specifics than she cared about. "So that's a yes." Cole walked past her to where her Valkyrie sat in the middle of the bay like a sleeping predator. She watched his eyes trace the lines of the car, reading it like text, assessing, calculating. "Maybe. Let me look at it. I need it tomorrow." "You want it tomorrow, don't you?" It wasn't quite an answer, but something in his voice suggested he understood the difference between need and want better than she did. "Let me look at it first. Then I'll tell you if I can fix it." Cole opened the driver's door and sat in her $3 million car with his grease-stained hands, his fingers moving across the dashboard with surprising gentleness. He pressed the start button. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. Then he closed his eyes. Diane watched confused as this strange mechanic sat in her car with his eyes shut like he was meditating. What are you doing? Listening. To what? It's not making any sound. Everything makes sound, Ms. Harper. Even silence tells you something. After what felt like an hour, but was probably only 2 minutes, Cole opened his eyes and got out of the car. He walked around it slowly, studying it from different angles, occasionally crouching to look underneath. His movements were methodical, deliberate, nothing wasted. Well, Diane's voice had more edge than she intended. Cole straightened, wiping his hands again in that nervous habit. The diagnostic computers are right, there's no obvious fault, but the symptom pattern suggests a voltage drop somewhere in the primary power distribution. Could be a bad ground connection. Could be a failing relay in the junction box. Could be a short in the harness that only manifests under specific conditions. In English, please. It's like having a blackout in your house, but only in certain rooms and only sometimes. The problem isn't that there's no power coming in, it's that power isn't getting where it needs to go. Can you fix it? Cole looked at the car again, then back at her. His face was unreadable. Probably, but it'll take time. 2 days, maybe 3, to do it right. I need it tomorrow. Then you need someone willing to guess and replace parts until something works. That's not fixing it. That's gambling. And with this car, gambling means you could create new problems worse than the one you have. Diane took a step closer, close enough that most people would have stepped back. Cole didn't move. Mr. Bennett, I'm not interested in explanations or excuses. I have a dinner meeting tomorrow night that I cannot miss, and I will not arrive in anything less than my own car. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to fix this car by tomorrow evening, and you're going to do it right. And if you can't, then you're wasting both our time. Cole met her eyes, and for just a moment, she saw something that looked almost like amusement. You must be really important. Excuse me? The car, the attitude, the assumption that the laws of physics bend to your schedule. He shook his head slightly. You must be really, really important. Diane Harper had faced down boardrooms full of hostile shareholders. She'd negotiated with foreign governments and stared down corporate raiders. She was not accustomed to being mocked by men in coveralls. I don't think you understand who you're talking to. Diane Harper, CEO of Harper Technologies, net worth somewhere north of $400 million depending on stock price. Youngest woman to ever helm a Fortune 500 company, known as the Ice Queen by Business Insider and the Barracuda by your competitors. Cole recited the facts like he was reading a grocery list. Did I miss anything? Diane stared at him. How did you Google? You're not exactly subtle with that custom license plate. She looked back at her car. He was right. The vanity plate read HRPR CEO. Subtle had never been her brand. So you know who I am. Then you know that disappointing me is bad for business. Is it? Cole tilted his head slightly. Are you going to leave bad Yelp reviews? Get me fired. Destroy my career. There was no anger in his voice. No fear. Just genuine curiosity. I could. You could, he agreed, but you won't get your car fixed by tomorrow. See, Ms. Harper, here's the thing about machines. They don't care about your net worth. They don't care about your meetings or your deadlines or your threats. They work on their own timeline. And if you try to rush them, they break. Sometimes permanently. Diane felt something unfamiliar rising in her chest. Not just anger, something else. Something that felt dangerously close to respect. So that's a no. That's a let me think about it. Cole walked back to the car, popped the hood, and stared down into the engine bay. The Valkyrie's V12 was a work of art, 6.5 liters, producing 1,160 horsepower, surrounded by carbon fiber and exotic metals and electronics worth more than most people's houses. Cole stood there for a long time, his eyes moving over the engine like he was reading poetry. Finally, he spoke without looking at her. If I do this, if I try to do this on your timeline, I'm not making any promises. Maybe I find it in 6 hours. Maybe I don't find it at all. Maybe I find it and discover the part I need won't be here until next week. but I'll try. But I have a condition. Diane Harper did not accept conditions. She gave them. What Cole closed the hood with more care than she'd ever seen anyone handle her property. Then he turned to face her again, and this time there was definitely a challenge in his eyes. If I fix this car, and I mean really fix it so it runs perfectly, you have to do something for me. Name it. I'll tell you when I fix the car. That's not how negotiations work, Mr. Bennett. It is when you're the one who needs something. Ms. Harper. They stared at each other across the hood of the Aston Martin. Diane felt something she hadn't felt in years, someone treating her like a person instead of a checkbook. She should have walked away, should have called a tow truck, taken the car to the dealership in San Francisco, flown down in her helicopter. Should have reminded this nobody mechanic that she didn't negotiate with people who worked on their backs. Instead, she heard herself say, "Fine, fix the car, name your price." Cole nodded once, then walked to a rolling tool cabinet. When he returned, he carried a tablet and what looked like a diagnostic computer. He set them on a cart next to the Valkyrie and got to work without another word. Diane stood there for a moment, uncertain. She wasn't used to being dismissed, especially not after making a deal. But Cole had already forgotten she existed. His entire focus was on the car, on the diagnostic screen, on whatever invisible problem he was hunting. She turned to leave. "Ms. Harper." His voice stopped her at the door to the waiting room. "What?" "This is going to take a while. The waiting room's not comfortable. You should go home. Come back tomorrow." "I'll decide what I should do, Mr. Bennett." "Suit yourself." He plugged a cable into the car's diagnostic port and turned back to his screens. Diane stood in that doorway for a full minute watching this man ignore her with the kind of complete indifference she'd only ever dreamed of having. Then, against every instinct she had, she walked back to the waiting room, sat down in one of those terrible plastic chairs, and waited. 3 hours later, Diane was still waiting. She'd made 17 phone calls, answered 43 emails, reviewed 2 acquisition proposals, denied 3 budget requests, and fired 1 regional manager who'd missed his quarterly targets. She'd done more work from that plastic chair than most people did from their offices. But she hadn't left. Through the window, she could see Cole working. He moved with quiet efficiency that came from deep competence. No wasted motion, no frustration, just steady, methodical problem solving. At one point, Frank brought him what looked like a sandwich and coffee. Cole ate while staring at the diagnostic screen, his eyes never leaving the data scrolling past. The sun was setting by the time Cole straightened up, rolled his shoulders, and closed the hood. Diane stood so fast her phone nearly fell from her lap. When Cole walked into the waiting room, he looked tired but not defeated. "Well, found it." His voice was matter of fact. Corroded ground connection in the battery junction box, creating intermittent voltage drops that cascaded through the control unit. The diagnostic computers couldn't see it because it only manifested under specific load conditions. "English, Mr. Bennett." "Rust on a wire." Cole showed her his phone, pulled up a photo of a small piece of corroded metal. "I cleaned it, reinforced it, tested it. Your car will start now." Diane felt something unexpected bloom in her chest. Relief, maybe, or vindication. She'd been right to trust him. "Show me." They walked back to the service bay together. The other mechanics had mostly left for the day, heading home to families and lives that didn't involve electronic automotive systems. The garage felt bigger in the gathering darkness. Emptier. Cole opened the driver's door and gestured for her to get in. Diane slid behind the wheel and felt immediately at home. This car fit her like a second skin. She knew every curve, every response, every sound it should make. She pressed the start button. The engine roared to life with a sound like God clearing his throat, a deep, visceral bellow that climbed to a howl as the tachometer needle swept toward redline, then settled into a purr so perfect it made her chest ache. Diane let it idle for a moment, feeling the vibration through the steering wheel, listening to the symphony of combustion and electronics working in perfect harmony. Then she turned it off and looked at Cole, who stood nearby with his hands in his pockets and something that might have been satisfaction on his face. "It's fixed." "It's fixed," he agreed. Diane got out of the car, and for a moment they just stood there looking at each other in the fluorescent light of the service bay. "You have something you want from me. Name it." Cole was quiet for a long moment, then he smiled, actually smiled. And it changed his whole face, made him look younger and somehow sadder at the same time. Do you remember what you said when you first walked up to me? Diane tried to recall. It felt like years ago instead of hours. I asked if you could fix my car. Before that, when I was under the truck, when you kicked my creeper to get my attention. Heat rose in her cheeks. Not embarrassment exactly, but something close. I didn't kick it, I nudged it. You asked if I was deaf or rude, like those were the only two explanations for why someone wouldn't immediately respond to you. I don't see what that has to do with. Do you know why I was under that truck, Ms. Harper? The one that's probably worth less than your watch. Diane looked down at her Patek Philippe. He was right. Why? Because the guy who owns it is a single father, works two jobs construction during the day, security at night. His truck is 23 years old. It's ugly, it leaks oil, the transmission slips, but it's paid for. And he can't afford a car payment. And he needs it to get to work. And he needs to get to work because he has a 7-year-old daughter who needs school clothes and groceries and all the things kids need. Diane crossed her arms. That's very charitable. But what does it have to do with my car? Everything, Ms. Harper, because you're standing here assuming that everyone exists to serve you. That money means you can treat people like inconveniences, that the world runs on your schedule. Cole's voice was still quiet, still calm, but there was steel underneath it now. And I'm standing here thinking about how I just spent 3 hours fixing a toy for someone who wouldn't even shake my boss's hand when he offered it. The words hung in the air like smoke. Diane had been called many things in her life: ruthless, brilliant, cold, the Ice Queen, the Barracuda. She'd been called worse names in boardrooms and in profile pieces, and probably in bedrooms after she'd left them. None of it had ever bothered her. But something about the way this grease-stained mechanic looked at her made her feel small. You want an apology? The words came out harder than she intended. Fine. I'm sorry I interrupted your charity work to ask you to do your actual job. I don't want an apology. I want you to understand something. What? That people aren't systems. You can't just throw money at them and expect them to work the way you want. They're messy and complicated, and they break in ways you can't predict. And sometimes, Ms. Harper, the most important repairs are the ones that don't come with a price tag. Diane wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that the world absolutely did run on money and power and knowing which buttons to push. Wanted to remind him that she'd built an empire on understanding exactly how to make people work the way she wanted. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, not with anger or judgment, but with something that looked almost like pity. What do you want from me? Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. He held it out to her. Diane looked down. It was a spark plug. Old, corroded, clearly no longer functional. What does this? Keep it as a reminder. Of what? That even the most expensive machines break down to the same basic principles. Fuel, air, spark. Remove any one of those elements, and it doesn't matter how much money you spent, it won't run. He closed her fingers around the spark plug. His hands were rough but warm. Same with people, Mrs. Harper. We're all just trying to keep our engines running. For a moment, Diane just stood there holding this worthless piece of metal. Then she looked up at Cole, bent and really looked at him, maybe for the first time, and saw someone who'd probably been broken down and rebuilt more times than her Valkyrie. That's it, a philosophy lesson in a broken spark plug. That's it, Diane laughed. She couldn't help it. The sound echoed through the empty garage, harsh and unexpected. You could have asked for anything, money, a mom, a favor. I would have given it to you. I know. And you chose this, I did. She turned the spark plug over in her hand, feeling its weight, its roughness. You're either the wisest man I've ever met or the stupidest. Probably a little of both, Cole said, and that ghost of a smile was back. Diane slipped the spark plug into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. How much do I owe you for the repair? $600 for parts and labor. Shop rate. Diane started to laugh again, then realized he was serious. $600, I was prepared to pay 10 times that. Then donate the difference to charity. Or don't. It's your money. She stared at him for another long moment, then pulled up her payment app. Sent Frank Sullivan's shop $6,000. $600 for the repair, she rationalized. The rest for the guy with the truck. Tell him it's from an anonymous donor. Cole's eyes widened slightly. Ms. Harper, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Consider it tuition for today's philosophy lesson. For the first time, Cole looked uncertain. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just fix that truck. Diane walked toward her car, then paused. And Mr. Bennett, next time someone rudely interrupts your work, you should probably say something. The world has too many people like me and not enough people like you. She got in her Valkyrie, started the engine. It roared to life perfectly, just like he'd promised, and drove out of that garage into the Seattle rain without looking back. But that night alone in her penthouse apartment, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Diane pulled the spark plug out of her pocket and set it on her desk. She stared at it for a long time, this worthless piece of metal that a strange mechanic thought was worth more than money. And for the first time in 15 years, since the day she'd sworn she'd never let anyone make her feel small again, Diane Harper wondered if maybe she'd been measuring success with the wrong ruler all along. 3 weeks passed. Cole started at Harper Technologies the following Monday. Senior security architect. $92,000 a year. Full medical benefits that would cover Emma's surgery with a $5,000 max out of pocket. Frank had been disappointed to lose him, but understood. Some opportunities you didn't turn down. The job was exactly what Cole had expected, and nothing like it at the same time. The technical work was engaging complex systems, sophisticated threats, the kind of problems that required actual thought instead of just running scripts. His MIT training, all those years building guidance systems for hardware that couldn't afford to fail, translated perfectly to protecting digital infrastructure that couldn't afford to be breached. But it was the people who surprised him. The engineering team, led by a skeptical CTO named Wyatt Sterling, had initially treated him like Miranda's pet project, the guy who got hired because the boss felt sorry for him. That lasted exactly one day. An authentication bug had been plaguing the system for 6 weeks, random user lockouts. 3 senior engineers had tried and failed to isolate the cause. Wyatt threw it at Cole like a test. If you're so qualified, solve this. Cole solved it in 20 minutes. Time zone inconsistency in the validation logic. Every time a user crossed into a new zone, there was a 3-second window where authentication could fail. The fix was simple: convert all checks to UTC plus 0. No local time, no edge cases. The room went quiet. Wyatt stared at the solution like Cole had just performed magic. How did you see that so fast? When time zone bugs can compromise missile defense systems, you learn to spot them quick. After that, the skepticism disappeared. Turned out credibility in tech wasn't about where you'd been. It was about what you could do right now. Cole settled into a rhythm. Work 7 to 3, pick up Emma from school, dinner together, homework, bath time, the bedtime ritual that hadn't changed in 3 years because consistency was the only thing keeping either of them sane. Then after Emma slept, Cole would sit at his laptop and work through the security audits he couldn't finish during business hours. The money helped. For the first time in 3 years, Cole could buy groceries without calculating every item. Could take Emma to the doctor without worrying about the copay. Could think about her surgery as a when instead of an if. The relief was physical, like he'd been holding his breath underwater for 36 months and finally surfaced. But sometimes late at night he thought about Diane Harper, about the woman who'd been so furious at the universe for the inconvenience of a declined card, about the way she'd looked at him when he gave her that spark plug like he'd offered her something precious and she didn't know what to do with it. He wondered if their paths would cross again. Hope not. People like Diane Harper were beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. Like the cars they drove, engineered for speed and power but prone to catastrophic failure when something small went wrong. Cole had enough broken things in his life. He didn't need to add a billionaire to the list. Monday morning, week 4, Cole was in a meeting reviewing quarterly security metrics when his phone buzzed. Jennifer from Executive Admin. Ms. Harper needs you in the executive garage, immediately. Something in her voice made his stomach drop. What's wrong? Just come now. Cole took the stairs, faster than the elevator. 43 floors down, heart hammering by the time he hit the parking level. The smell hit him first, acrid chemical wrong, like burning rubber mixed with something sweet and toxic. Then he saw the smoke. Diane stood beside her Valkyrie, the car he'd fixed 3 weeks ago, And even from 50 feet away, Cole could see something was terribly wrong. Wisps of gray smoke curled from beneath the hood. The metallic scent of scorched wiring hung in the air like evidence. Building security had cordoned off the area. A fire extinguisher sat nearby, already discharged. Diane's face was pale controlled, but her hands shook when she saw him. It was on fire. Her voice came out steady despite everything. Actual flames from the engine bay. They put it out, but Cole was already moving. He pulled on gloves from his pocket habit, from years of working with hot metal, and carefully lifted the hood. Smoke billowed out briefly, then dissipated. He stared down at the engine bay and felt his blood go cold. Melted plastic, scorched wiring, the unmistakable signature of electrical fire. But it was the location that made his chest tighten. The climate control wiring harness. Different system entirely from what he'd repaired. And there, visible even through the carbon residue, two wires that shouldn't be touching. Cole pulled out his phone, started taking photographs. Close-ups of the burn pattern. The wire routing. The specific points where insulation had been stripped away. Then he straightened his mind, working through possibilities and probabilities, and coming to a conclusion he didn't want to reach. Ms. Harper, when did you last drive the car? Yesterday morning. Everything was fine. No warning lights, no strange smells, nothing unusual. And this morning, I came down at 9:15, found it like this. Security called the fire department, but the flames had already gone out. Cole bent down again, using his phone's flashlight to peer deeper into the engine bay. Following wire paths, tracing circuits, looking for the story the damage would tell if he knew how to read it. And there it was, two wires from completely different systems. One for climate control, one for the headlight circuit. They should never touch. They were insulated. They were routed separately. They were in different harnesses, but they were touching. And not just touching, the insulation had been deliberately stripped away. The bare copper twisted together like someone had used pliers to ensure contact. Cole took 3 more photographs. Then he stood up and met Diane's eyes. Someone sabotaged your car. The words hung in the air like accusation. Diane's face went from pale to ash gray. What? These two wires, they're from different systems. The insulation was removed. They were twisted together. Cole zoomed in on one of the photos, showed her. This wasn't an accident, Ms. Harper. Someone modified your car in a way that would definitely cause an electrical short, which would definitely cause a fire, which would definitely total the vehicle if it happened while you were driving on the highway. You're saying, I'm saying someone tried to kill you. Diane staggered back a step. Cole reached out, instinctively steadied her. She looked up at him with something he'd never seen in her face before. Fear, raw and undisguised. I need you to fix it, and I need you to figure out who did this. Ms. Harper, I'm a mechanic, not a detective. You need to call the police. And tell them that maybe someone tampered with my car, that you think some wires were stripped, but you're not sure. They'll write a report and file it away, and nothing will happen. Her voice was climbing control slipping. But you can fix it. And while you're fixing it, you can figure out how someone did this without leaving obvious evidence. And once we know how, we can figure out who. That's not name your price, Mr. Bennett. It's not about price. Cole's voice was firm. This is serious. If someone really did sabotage your car, that's attempted murder. You need professionals. You are a professional. Not that kind. They stared at each other across the hood of her smoking Valkyrie. And Cole saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Not arrogance, not entitlement, just genuine terror badly hidden. Like she'd finally realized that all her money and all her power couldn't protect her from someone determined enough to plan this carefully. Please, the words seemed foreign in her mouth. I don't know who else to trust. Cole thought about Emma, about the surgery that was now possible because Diane had hired him, about the fact that if someone was willing to kill a CEO, they probably wouldn't hesitate to clean up witnesses. About all the ways getting involved in this was a terrible idea. But he also thought about the way Diane had looked at him in the garage 3 weeks ago, like he was a person who mattered, like his opinion carried weight, like he was more than just another name on the payroll. I'll document everything, he heard himself say. every piece of evidence, every trace of tampering. But you're calling Detective Chen and reporting this as attempted murder, and you're getting better security. I can fix the car, but I can't protect you from whoever did this. Relief flooded Diane's face. Thank you. Cole pulled out his diagnostic tablet, started running a deeper scan on the vehicle's computer system. If someone had physically accessed the car to strip wires, maybe they'd left digital traces too. The diagnostic port could tell stories if you knew how to ask the right questions. The scan ran. Cole watched data scroll past, looking for anomalies, looking for anything that didn't belong. And then he found it. Ms. Harper. His voice came out flat, controlled in a way that meant something very bad. There's spyware in your car's computer system. She moved to his side, stared at the tablet like the information might rearrange itself into something less terrifying. What kind of spyware? The professional kind. GPS tracking, driving behavior analysis, speed acceleration, braking patterns. It's been transmitting a data to a remote server for... He scrolled through the logs. 4 months. Someone's been watching you, learning your routes, your habits, your routines. Diane's hand found his arm, gripped tight. Can you tell who installed it? Not from this. But I can trace where it was sending data. Cole's fingers flew across the tablet, following digital breadcrumbs through proxy servers and encrypted tunnels. The kind of work he'd done for 15 years in classified facilities. The kind of skills that never really went away. 3 minutes later, he had it. The final destination. The server receiving all of Diane's data. It's transmitting to a server farm in Nevada. And that server farm, Cole pulled up the contract information, has a service agreement with Harper Technologies' IT department. The implications hung between them like poison gas. Someone inside the company. Someone with IT access. Someone who knew how to hide their tracks and make it look like routine traffic. Someone close enough to Diane to know her schedule, her vehicle information, her security protocols. Cole looked at her and saw the moment understanding hit, saw her face transform from fear to fury. I'm going to find them. Her voice was ice. Whoever did this, I am going to destroy them. First, we keep you alive long enough to do it. Cole closed the hood carefully this time, preserving evidence. I'll have the car towed to my shop, document everything. But Ms. Harper, until we figure this out, you should vary your routine. Different routes, different schedule. Make yourself unpredictable. I have a company to run. You'll be running it from a coffin if we don't find this person. The bluntness made her flinch. But Cole didn't soften it. She needed to understand the stakes. This wasn't corporate espionage. This was someone willing to burn her alive in her own car. Detective Chen arrived 20 minutes later, took statements, arranged for the vehicle to be transported to an authorized facility for processing. Cole gave her copies of all his photos, all his findings, detailed documentation of the sabotage. You did good work here, Mr. Bennett, Chen said. Quick thinking, solid evidence collection. Just used to working with systems that can't afford mistakes. Well, Ms. Harper's lucky you were available. Chen turned to Diane. I'm assigning a detail to your building, and I strongly recommend you vary your patterns. Whoever did this has been planning for months. They're not going to stop because they failed once. After Chen left, Diane turned to Cole. They stood in the parking garage, surrounded by the acrid smell of burnt insulation and the particular quiet that came after crisis. Will you help me? Her voice was small, vulnerable in a way that made Cole's chest ache. Figure out who did this. I know it's not your job. I know you have Emma to think about, but I don't know who else to trust. Cole thought about all the reasons to say no. The danger, the time, the fact that getting involved in corporate murder plots was nowhere in his job description. Then he thought about Emma's surgery, about the life Diane had given them when she could have just walked away. I'll help, but on one condition. Anything. You actually listen when I tell you something's dangerous. No pride, no stubbornness, no, I can handle this myself. Because I can't help you if you won't help yourself. Diane nodded, something that might have been gratitude flickering across her face. Deal. Cole pulled out his phone, typed in his personal cell number, sent it to her. That's my real number, not the work line. It's always on, always within reach. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call me. Day or night? You do that answer at 3 in the morning. I've got a daughter who sometimes can't breathe in the middle of the night. I'm always awake anyway. Something in Diane's expression shifted, softened, like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. Not as an employee, not as a mechanic, just as a person who'd chosen to care whether she lived or died. Thank you, Cole. It was the first time she'd used his first name. The familiarity of it hit him harder than it should have. Don't thank me yet. We haven't caught them. But as he walked back to the elevator, Cole's mind was already working, tracing patterns, building profiles. Whoever had done this had serious resources and technical skills, had access to Diane's building security, had been planning this for months. That narrowed the suspect pool considerably. By the time he reached his office, Cole had a theory forming. It wasn't complete, wasn't proven, but pieces were starting to click together in ways that made terrible sense. Someone inside Harper Technologies wanted Diane Harper dead. Someone with money and motive, and the means to make it look like an accident. Cole opened his laptop and started building a file. Every piece of evidence, every data point, every connection that might lead somewhere useful. Because whoever had tried to kill Diane Harper had made one critical mistake. They'd left digital traces in a system. And Cole Bennett had spent 15 years learning how to read those traces, how to follow them back to their source, how to find the people who thought they were invisible. That night in her penthouse 43 floors above the city, Diane Harper stood at her windows and watched lights flicker across Manhattan like stars that had fallen to earth. Her hands shook when she poured scotch she wouldn't drink. Her reflection in the glass looked small and afraid. Someone wanted her dead. Someone she probably knew, saw regularly, maybe even trusted. The thought made her sick. Her phone buzzed. Cole, got home safe, stay alert. Such a simple message. But the fact that he'd checked, that he'd thought to make sure she was okay, made something crack open in Diane's chest. She pulled the spark plug from her desk drawer, the one Cole had given her 3 weeks ago. Worthless metal that he'd claimed was worth more than money. Fuel, air, spark, the basic elements of combustion, of life. Diane held the spark plug and thought about what she'd been missing all these years. Not fuel, she had purpose. Not air, she had, well, maybe she didn't have much hope. But she'd had survival. That counted for something. Spark. That was the missing piece, the catalyst that made everything else matter. Connection, love. The thing that turned mechanical process into actual living. She typed back, "Thank you for checking. Sleep well." Then she added one more thing before she could stop herself. "I'm glad you're here." The response came fast. "Me too, even if your car's a pain in the ass." Diane laughed. Actual laughter in her empty penthouse at midnight while someone plotted to kill her. The absurdity of it all hit her at once. But underneath the fear and the confusion and the anger, she felt something else. Something she hadn't felt in 15 years. Hope. Maybe she wasn't alone anymore. Maybe there were still people in the world who saw value in helping others without calculating what they'd get in return. Maybe grease-stained hands and storm cloud eyes and quiet voices that didn't need to be loud could change everything. Maybe, just maybe, being the Ice Queen wasn't the only way to survive. Diane set down the spark plug and pulled out a notebook. Started making a list. Everyone who had access to her car. Everyone who might want her dead. Everyone who'd benefit from her absence. The list was longer than she wanted to admit, but tomorrow she and Cole would start narrowing it down. Start finding the person who tried to burn her alive. Start building a case that would destroy them the way they'd tried to destroy her. Because Diane Harper hadn't built a $420 million empire by accepting defeat. She'd built it by being smarter and tougher and more relentless than everyone who tried to stop her. And whoever had sabotaged her car was about to learn what happened when you went to war with the Barracuda. Cole worked through the night at Sullivan's automotive laptop, casting blue light across workbenches that had seen 40 years of honest labor. The spyware code was elegant, professional, the kind of work that required serious skill and inside knowledge of Aston Martin's proprietary systems, not the work of some angry ex-employee with a grudge. This was calculated, precise, expensive. Tuesday, 1:47 a.m., 36 hours after the fire. Travis appeared with pizza and the kind of concerned expression that came from 12 years of friendship. You're going to burn out. Can't afford to. Emma needs you alive, brother. Travis set down the food, pulled up a stool. What you're doing for this woman, it's dangerous. You know that, right? Cole did know. Had spent the last 6 hours tracing data packets through 3 layers of proxy servers, following digital breadcrumbs that someone very smart had tried to hide. The trail led through encryption protocols that would have stopped most investigators. But Cole had spent 15 years working on systems where failure meant satellites worth billions became expensive space debris. He knew how to read what others missed. Found the installation date, 4 months ago, right when Diane announced a major company restructure. Travis leaned over the screen. That's not coincidence. No, it's not. Cole pulled up Harper Technologies' org chart, started mapping who had the access and expertise to pull this off. The IT department employed 47 people, but only 3 had both cybersecurity backgrounds and executive-level system permissions. One name stood out: Kyle Harrison, 32, MIT graduate, 5 years at Lockheed Martin doing classified network security before joining Harper Technologies 8 months ago. Current position, Chief of Staff to COO Richard Vance. Cole stared at the connection. Richard Vance, the man who'd personally blocked Cole's job application, who'd called a grieving father with a sick child a psychological instability risk. You think it's this Richard guy? I think it's someone with motive and means. Richard has both. Cole opened another file, the one Detective Chen had sent over with Diane's building security logs. But I need proof, not just suspicion. Travis grabbed a slice of pizza, studied his friend in the harsh fluorescent light. Man, you look like hell. When's the last time you slept? I'll sleep when Emma's surgery is paid for and no one's trying to kill my boss. Your boss? That's interesting phrasing. Travis's grin was knowing. Not the CEO or Ms. Harper. Your boss, like she matters to you. She gave me a job that saves my daughter's life. Of course she matters. That's not what I meant. Cole didn't respond. Couldn't respond because Travis saw too much. Saw the way Cole's chest tightened when Diane's name appeared on his phone. Saw the extra care he took documenting evidence like her life depended on his thoroughness. Which it did technically, but that wasn't the point. The point was that somewhere between spark plugs and sabotage, Diane Harper had stopped being just another name on the Harper Technologies payroll, had become someone Cole wanted to protect. Someone who made him feel things he hadn't felt since Rachel died, which was terrifying and inappropriate and completely beside the point. Go home, Travis said gently. Emma will be up in 4 hours. You need to be functional for her. Cole saved his work, backed up the files to 3 separate encrypted drives in 3 different locations: belt and suspenders and bulletproof vest. If something happened to him, Detective Chen would have everything she needed. Thanks for watching her tonight. Always. That's what family does. Tuesday, 6:32 p.m., 48 hours post-fire. The call came while Cole was picking Emma up from school. Diane's voice tight with something that might have been excitement or might have been fear. I need to see you. Not at the office. Somewhere neutral. They met at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of place with red-checked tablecloths and wine and carafes and waiters who'd worked there 30 years. Cole arrived in jeans and the one shirt he owned without grease stains, navy button-down, that Travis's wife had given him last Christmas, still in the package until today. Diane was already seated in a booth at the back, wearing casual clothes that probably cost more than Cole's monthly rent, but looked normal enough to pass. Her hair was down. No power suit, no armor. Just a woman who looked tired and scared and determined not to show it. I've been thinking about who might want me dead. She slid a tablet across the table. 37 names, people I've fired, competitors I've destroyed, activists who blame Harper Technologies for environmental damage, ex-lovers who didn't take rejection well. Cole scrolled through the list. Each entry included detailed notes, dates, circumstances, potential motives. Diane's analytical mind at work, organizing threat assessments like quarterly projections. This is good, but we need to narrow it. Who has both motive and technical capability? That's why I need your help. I can identify enemies. You can identify which enemies could actually pull this off. The waiter appeared with menus. They ordered without looking pasta carbonara for him, puttanesca for her house wine, because the expensive stuff felt wrong in a place like this. After the waiter left, Cole leaned forward. The spyware was installed 4 months ago, right after you announced the restructure, which means whoever did this felt threatened by that announcement. Who lost power in the reorganization? Diane's eyes sharpened. She pulled the tablet back, fingers flying across the screen. 3 executives, 2 of them retired with generous packages. But Richard Vance, my COO, his authority was significantly reduced. I stripped his oversight of IT and operations, gave it to department heads reporting directly to me. Why? He was resistant to changes I wanted to make, kept pushing for short-term profits over long-term sustainability. I needed people who'd execute my vision, not fight me every step. Cole filed that away, motive established, but something else nagged at him. Tell me about Richard. How long has he been with the company? 3 years. Joined when I needed someone to handle day-to-day operations so I could focus on strategy. He's brilliant with numbers, ruthless with efficiency. I thought those were assets. And now, Diane was quiet for a moment. The wine arrived deep red that stained the glass. Now I'm wondering if I invited a viper into my nest. The food came. They ate in silence that felt comfortable instead of awkward. Cole watched her fork pasta with the same precision she probably applied to everything, measured, controlled, nothing wasted. But her hands shook slightly. Adrenaline crash from 3 days of sustained terror. When's the last time you slept? I could ask you the same thing. I asked first. Diane set down her fork. Honestly, I'm afraid to. Every time I close my eyes, I see flames, smell burning rubber. Imagine what would have happened if I'd been on I-5 when that short circuit triggered. Cole understood visceral fear, had lived with it for 3 years, the terror that Emma would stop breathing in her sleep, that her damaged heart would simply give out before he could save her. Fear keeps you alive, but exhaustion kills you just as dead as fire. You need rest. How do you do it? Stay functional while carrying impossible weight. The question was more personal than professional. Cole considered his answer carefully. I break it into pieces, can't control the big picture, but I can control the next hour, the next task. So I focus there. Make sure Emma eats breakfast. Make sure I document one more piece of evidence. String enough hours together, and eventually you've survived another day. That sounds exhausting. It is, but the alternative is giving up, and I've got too much to live for. He met her eyes across the table. So do you. Don't let whoever did this take that from you. Something shifted in Diane's expression. Vulnerability breaking through the Ice Queen facade. I've spent 15 years believing that being alone made me strong, that needing people was weakness. But sitting here with you, I realize how lonely I've been, how exhausting it is to carry everything yourself. You don't have to anymore. Don't I? Her laugh was bitter. I can't trust my own company. Can't trust my security team. Someone gave that fake maintenance worker access. Can't even trust my own instincts because I hired Richard, promoted him, gave him power he's now using to try and kill me. You can trust me. The words hung between them, more significant than Cole had intended. Diane looked at him with something that might have been hope or might have been desperation. Why, you barely know me. I've been nothing but rude to you, entitled, dismissive. Why would you put yourself at risk for someone like me? Cole thought about Rachel, about the way she'd seen good in everyone, even people who didn't deserve it, about the last thing she'd said to him before the accident, that the world needed more people willing to help strangers, not because it benefited them, but because it was right. Because everyone deserves someone in their corner, even ice queens. Diane's eyes filled. She blinked rapidly, refusing to let the tears fall. I haven't cried in 15 years. That sounds exhausting, too. This time her laugh was genuine. You have a way of cutting through my bullshit. It's a gift. They finished dinner, walked out into Brooklyn evening that smelled like rain and distant ocean. Diane had driven herself a Mercedes loaner from insurance since the Valkyrie was evidence. They stood beside it, neither quite ready to separate. Thank you for tonight, for listening, for, she paused, searching for words. for treating me like a person instead of a paycheck. You are a person, complicated, difficult, but human. Cole stepped closer, close enough to see flecks of gold in her blue eyes. And you're worth protecting. Diane rose on her toes, kissed him. Quick, tentative, asking permission more than demanding it. Cole's brain provided 17 reasons this was a terrible idea. His heart ignored all of them. He kissed her back, slow and careful, tasting wine and possibility. When they separated, both were breathing harder. Diane's hand lingered on his chest. This is a bad idea. Probably the worst, Cole agreed. You work for me. There's a power dynamic, professional ethics, HR policies. All true. We should stop. We should. Neither of them moved. Rain started falling, light mist that turned Brooklyn into watercolor. Diane laughed again, that genuine sound that transformed her whole face. Get in the car before we both drown. Cole opened her door, made sure she was safely inside before stepping back. Watched her drive away into the night, taillights disappearing around a corner. His phone buzzed. Text from her, I meant what I said. Thank you. He typed back, sleep, actual sleep. That's an order. You're not my boss, Bennett. No, but I'm trying to keep you alive. Humor me. The response took longer. Cole was halfway to the subway when it came. Okay, I'll try. Thursday, 11:23 a.m., 4 days post-fire. Detective Chen called at noon with information that made Cole's blood run cold. We pulled security footage from Harper Technologies' parking garage. Day before the fire, a maintenance contractor sent a different technician than usual. Guy named James Peterson. Spent 43 minutes in the garage, most of it near Ms. Harper's vehicle. You get an ID. That's the problem. James Peterson doesn't exist. The name, the license, the employment history, all fabricated. Someone created a convincing enough identity to pass your building's background check, but it falls apart under real scrutiny. Cole processed this. Professional identity forgery, building security compromise, technical expertise to install spyware and sabotage electrical systems. They inserted a plant, knew the building protocols well enough to exploit them. Exactly. Which means we're not dealing with some angry competitor. This is organized, planned, well-funded. Chen's voice dropped. Mr. Bennett, whoever's behind this has resources and knowledge. They're not going to stop. And Ms. Harper needs to understand that. She knows. Doesn't make her any less stubborn about maintaining her normal life. Stubborn gets people killed. Cole knew that intimately. Rachel had been stubborn about driving that night despite his exhaustion. Stubborn about making the trip instead of rescheduling. Stubbornness had gotten her and Lily killed and left him with a daughter whose broken heart required $80,000 to fix. He wasn't going to let Diane's stubbornness kill her too. Thursday, 6:47 p.m., 4 days, 7 hours post-fire. That evening, he met with Lauren at a coffee shop far from Harper Technologies' downtown tower. She brought files, physical copies, not digital, the kind you couldn't hack remotely. I've been mapping Richard's transactions. Found something interesting. She spread documents across the table. 4 months ago, right when the spyware was installed, Richard made a payment to a consulting firm in Nevada. Routine on the surface, technology consulting, perfectly legitimate. Except the firm has exactly one client, Harper Technologies. And guess where the spyware transmits its data? Same Nevada location. Exactly. Richard created a fake consulting company, paid it from Harper Technologies' budget, and used it as a front for surveillance operations. He's been using company money to plan company murder. The elegant brutality of it was almost impressive. Richard had turned Harper Technologies into an unwitting accomplice in its own CEO's assassination. What about Kyle? Where does he fit? Lauren's expression darkened. Kyle Harrison has a sealed juvenile record. Took some digging, but I found it. Hacking charges when he was 17. Broke into his high school's network, changed grades. Case was sealed because he was a minor and agreed to community service. But here's the thing, Richard recommended Kyle for the position. Vouched for him personally. Somehow knew about the hacking skills that weren't on any official record. Richard recruited someone with a criminal past in cybersecurity. Someone vulnerable to leverage. Cole's mind raced through implications. You think Richard has something on Kyle, is using it to force cooperation? That's my guess. Kyle's too smart to get involved in murder voluntarily, but if Richard has evidence of past crimes, current illegal activity, anything that could put Kyle in prison, then Kyle's trapped, forced to choose between helping commit murder or facing his own destruction. They sat in silence watching rain streak the coffee shop windows. Two people trying to solve a puzzle where all the pieces were stained with malice. Cole's phone buzzed. "Diane, can I come over? I need to see Emma. Need to be around something normal and good." He typed back, "Address is 2847 Ashford Street, apartment 4C. Bring food. Emma's always hungry." "You sure I don't want to intrude?" "You're not intruding. You're family now, whether you like it or not." The response took a moment. "I like it." Thursday, 7:19 p.m., 4 days, 9 hours post-fire. Diane arrived bearing Chinese takeout and an awkward uncertainty that made her seem younger. Cole answered the door, and for a moment they just stood there, this grieving father and lonely CEO, both carrying weights too heavy for one person. "Come in." Fair warning, the place is small, and Emma's going through a dinosaur phase that involves a lot of noise. The apartment was exactly what Diane expected, and nothing like it. Small, yes, furnished with mismatched pieces that came from thrift stores and Craigslist, but clean, organized, lived in. Photos of Rachel and Lily arranged on one wall like a memorial, Emma's artwork covering another. This was a home, not a showplace, not an investment, a place where people loved each other fiercely despite everything trying to tear them apart. Emma appeared from her bedroom, suspicious and curious in equal measure. "Your dad's boss." "I am." Diane knelt down, meeting the child at eye level, and, "You must be Emma. Did you bring food?" "Chinese. Your dad said you might be hungry." "I'm always hungry. Dad says I'm a growing girl." Emma eyed the takeout bags with approval. "Did you get spring rolls?" "3 orders." "Okay, you can stay." They ate on the floor around a coffee table that wobbled on uneven legs. Emma dominated conversation with detailed explanations of pterosaur aerodynamics that Diane followed with genuine interest. Cole watched them interact, his daughter and the woman he was falling for, and felt something settle in his chest. Not happiness exactly, but maybe the possibility of it. After dinner, Emma showed Diane her most prized possession, a notebook with "good things" list written on the cover in careful crayon letters. "It's things that make my heart feel warm even when I'm scared. Dr. Grant helped me start it." "Can I see?" Emma flipped pages, reading in the serious voice of someone sharing sacred text. "Number 1, Dad. Number 2, Mr. Patches, that's my bear. Number 3, chocolate ice cream. Number 4, when the rain stops and you can see clouds look like stuff. Number 5, people who fix broken things. That's like Dad. He fixes cars but also fixes hearts by making people not sad." Diane's vision blurred. This 8-year-old child had more wisdom than most CEOs Diane had met, had survived tragedy that would have broken adults and turned it into a list of joy. "That's beautiful, Emma. What's on your list?" The question came innocent, curious. Diane realized she didn't have one, hadn't thought about good things in so long she'd forgotten they existed. "I don't have a list yet." Emma looked genuinely shocked. "Everyone needs a list. How do you remember what matters when you're scared?" I, I don't know." "That's okay." Emma pulled a blank notebook from her desk, pressed it into Diane's hands. "You can use this. Start small. Even one good thing is better than 0. Diane held the notebook like it might explode. "What if I can't think of anything?" "Then Dad can help you. He's good at finding good things even when they're hiding." Emma yawned, exhaustion hitting suddenly the way it did with children. "I'm sleepy now. Will you be here in the morning?" "I don't think so, sweetie, but I'll see you again soon." "Promise?" "Promise." Cole carried Emma to bed, tucked her in with the ritual that had sustained them both through 3 years of grief. When he returned, Diane stood at the photo wall, studying Rachel's face. She was beautiful. Inside and out. Cole joined her shoulder to shoulder. "Emma has her laugh, her kindness. Sometimes I see Rachel in her expressions, and it breaks me all over again. I'm sorry for what you lost, for what Emma lost. I'm sorry someone's trying to take you away from people who need you." Cole turned to face her close enough that she could see the exhaustion carved into his face. "Lauren told me about the embezzlement. 23 million. Richard's desperate. He's going to try again. Yeah, he is. Cole's jaw tightened. Which is why you're staying here tonight. Guest room, door locks. Emma and I will be in the next room. Anyone wants to hurt you, they go through me first. Cole, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm telling. His voice left no room for argument. Someone tried to kill you twice. Tried to destroy evidence I'm protecting. Put my daughter at risk by extension. This stopped being just about you the moment they violated my shop. Now it's personal. Diane looked at this man who'd rebuilt his life from ashes, who carried impossible weight with quiet strength, who'd somehow decided she was worth protecting, despite being nothing but difficult since they'd met. Why do you care what happens to me? Because I've watched my daughter code twice, held her hand while doctors tried to restart her heart, sat in waiting rooms at 3 in the morning, wondering if she'd see sunrise, and you know what I learned? What? That life doesn't care about winning or losing. It doesn't care about being strong or being right or refusing to back down. It just cares about whether you're still breathing at the end. His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. And I'm trying really hard to make sure you're still breathing, Diane. But I can't do it alone. I need you to care about staying alive as much as you care about not losing. The words cracked something open in Diane's chest. All her armor, all her walls, all the careful distance she'd maintained for 15 years. They fell away, leaving her raw and exposed and terrified. I don't know how. Then learn. Starting tonight, sleep here where it's safe. Let someone watch your back for once. Diane nodded, too exhausted to argue. Cole showed her the guest room, small, clean, with a lock on the door and windows that faced the street. Bathrooms across the hall. Emma usually wakes around 7. Fair warning, she's loud. I don't mind loud. After he left, Diane sat on the edge of the bed and opened Emma's gift notebook, stared at blank pages that demanded she find goodness in a life she'd spent building walls around. Finally, she wrote one thing. Just one. People who answer their phones at 2 a.m. even though they have every reason not to. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sunday, 11:04 p.m., 7 days, 13 hours post-fire. The attack came 3 nights later. Diana had already returned to her penthouse against Cole's advice, needing clothes and documents she couldn't do without. She'd promised to be quick. In and out in 20 minutes. She made it 18 minutes before the lights went out. The backup generator should have engaged immediately. Harper Technologies building had redundancy systems for its redundancy systems. But the penthouse stayed dark, and Diane's combat training from 3 years of Krav Maga classes kicked in before conscious thought. Someone was here, in her space, waiting. She moved toward the panic room phone already out, hit the emergency button that would alert building security and Seattle PD simultaneously. But before she reached the reinforced door, a figure emerged from her bedroom. Tall, athletic, moving with the fluid grace of professional violence. The knife in his hand caught ambient light from the city below. Diane ran, flat-out sprint toward the panic room, 10 feet that felt like miles. She could hear him behind her, footsteps, impossibly quiet for someone so large. Her hand hit the panic room door, fumbled with the biometric scanner, blood pounding in her ears, so loud she almost missed the whisper of fabric as he closed the distance. Almost. She threw herself through the door as he lunged. The knife sparked against the steel frame, missing her by inches. Diane slammed the door, heard the heavy locks engage with mechanical finality. Safe. For now. Through the panic room's monitors, she watched him. Black tactical clothing, ski mask, gloves, no identifying features visible. He moved through her penthouse like he owned it, checking corners, confirming she was locked down. Then he walked to the window, looked out at the city for a long moment, and removed his mask. Diane couldn't see his face from the camera angle, but his phone call came through clearly on the audio feed she'd insisted on installing. Target secured in panic room. Building security responding. I need extraction. The voice that answered made Diane's blood freeze. Leave now. We'll clean up the loose ends later. Richard Vance, her COO, the man she trusted with day-to-day operations. Calm, collected, giving orders to an assassin like he was scheduling a meeting. The man in her penthouse, disconnected, replaced his mask and walked calmly to the balcony. Diane watched him rappel down the side of the building with professional ease. 43 floors of exposed vertical. He disappeared into the night like he'd never existed. Building security had arrived 3 minutes later. Seattle PD 4 minutes after that. Detective Chen showed up at minute 7 looking at Diane through the panic room security glass like she was witnessing a resurrection. "You okay, To?" "Alive." Diane's voice shook despite her best efforts. "I have audio. Richard Vance. He was on the phone with the attacker." Chen's face went hard. "We'll need that recording. And Ms. Harper, you're not going home. Not tonight. Not until we have Richard in custody." Diane's hands trembled as Chen helped her out of the panic room. The violation of her space, her sanctuary, hit her like a physical blow. Someone had been in her bedroom, had waited in darkness, had come to murder her in the place she should have been safest. She called Cole. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. "Diane, what's wrong?" "He was here in my penthouse with a knife. I barely made it to the panic room." The words tumbled out faster than she could process them. "I have audio of Richard giving orders. Chen's getting a warrant. But Cole, I can't go back there. Can't sleep knowing he was inside my home. Come here. Right now. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm sending patrol to escort you." "It's after midnight. Emma is asleep. We'll be thrilled to wake up and find you here. Come, please." 40 minutes later, Diane stood in Cole's living room wearing the same clothes she'd worn during the attack, blood pressure still spiking at random sounds. Cole took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with survival. "You're safe now." "Am I?" "He sent someone to my home, Cole, where I should have been protected." "I know, and we're going to make sure he pays for it." Cole guided her to the couch, wrapped her in a blanket that smelled like fabric softener and security. "Detective Chen will get the warrant. Richard will be arrested. This is almost over." "What if it's not? What if he has backups? More assassins? What if—" "Then we deal with it. Together. But right now, you need to breathe." Cole sat beside her, took her hands in his. They were ice cold despite the blanket. "In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Match my breathing." They breathed together in the quiet apartment while Emma slept innocently in the next room. Gradually, Diane's heart rate slowed. The adrenaline crash hit like exhaustion made physical. "I'm so tired." "Then sleep. I'll stay up. Watch the door. Nothing's getting past me." "You need sleep too. I've gone longer without. DOD training. You learn to function on 2 hours a night." Diane looked at this man who'd given up satellites and security clearances to be a father, who'd taken a job as a mechanic because it let him pick up his daughter from school, who'd somehow decided that a difficult billionaire CEO was worth losing sleep over. "Why are you doing this?" "Because 3 years ago I lost everyone who mattered except Emma. Because I know what it feels like to be hunted by circumstances you can't control. Because you gave me back a life where my daughter can have surgery and I can sleep at night knowing we'll make rent." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Because somewhere between spark plugs and sabotage, you stopped being my boss and became someone I'd walk through fire to protect." That's a really complicated way of saying you care. "I care. A lot. More than is probably smart given the circumstances." Diane leaned against him, let his solidity anchor her to reality. "I care too. About you. About Emma. About this weird little life you've built from tragedy. I want to be part of it. If you'll let me." "Yeah, I'll let you." They sat like that until dawn started painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Until Emma woke up and found Diane on the couch, shrieked with joy, and demanded chocolate chip pancakes. Until Detective Chen called with news that Richard Vance had been arrested at his home, that Kyle Harrison was in protective custody, and talking that the investigation was moving faster than anyone had expected. How long until Richard's officially charged? 48 hours, maybe less. We've got him on embezzlement, attempted murder, conspiracy. He's looking at 30 years minimum. Chen paused. "But Ms. Harper, there's something else, something we found in Richard's office. I think you need to see it." Monday, 37 p.m., 8 days post-fire, the document was a contract, professionally printed, legally binding in countries with looser murder-for-hire laws. $500,000 for confirmed kill. Target Diane Harper. posted 2 weeks ago on a dark web marketplace that Chen's cybercrimes unit had been monitoring. He hired a professional. Chen spread the evidence across her desk. Not just the guy who broke into your penthouse. That was amateur hour hired muscle meant to scare you. This is different. This is someone who kills for a living. Someone very good at it. Cole felt his chest go tight. Where is this person now? Unknown. The contract's still active. Payment and escrow pending confirmation of death. Chen looked at Diane with something like pity and accept. Harper, until we can identify and apprehend the actual hitman, you're still in danger. Richard in custody doesn't mean you're safe. Diane processed this with visible effort. So what do I do? Stay in hiding forever? Let Richard win by making me too afraid to live my life? You stay smart, stay protected, and you let us do our job. Cole drove Diane back to his apartment in silence. Emma was at school. The empty space felt hollow after the chaos of the last 12 hours. They sat on his couch, this man and this woman, both carrying the weight of knowing that professional violence was still hunting her. I can't live like this. Diane's voice was small, constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if every stranger is the one sent to kill me. You won't have to. Chen's good at her job. She'll find this person. And if she doesn't, Cole didn't have an answer for that, couldn't promise safety he couldn't guarantee. Couldn't pretend that $500,000 didn't buy a lot of patience and planning. Instead, he pulled out his laptop, showed her what he'd found an hour ago buried in dark web forums he'd learned to access during his DO days. Evidence that the contract on Diane had been viewed by someone with a very specific skill set, someone who specialized in making murders look like accidents. I'm tracking them, following their digital footprint. Eventually, they'll make a mistake. Everyone does. And when they do, I'll find them. You're not law enforcement. You're not trained for this. No, but I'm trained for systems, for finding patterns in chaos, for solving problems everyone else thinks are impossible. Cole met her eyes. And I'm very motivated to keep you alive. Diane kissed him, desperate and grateful and terrified. Promise me. Promise you won't get yourself killed trying to protect me. I promise to be as careful as I can while doing everything necessary to keep you breathing. That's not the same thing. No, but it's the only promise I can make. They held each other while sunlight tracked across the floor and Emma's school day ticked toward its end. While Richard Vance sat in a cell and Kyle Harrison negotiated his testimony. While somewhere in Sadall, a professional killer reviewed a contract and planned their approach. The game wasn't over. The enemy wasn't defeated. But for the first time in 4 months, Diane Harper wasn't alone in fighting them. And that Cole thought, as he felt her heartbeat steady against his chest, made all the difference. Monday, 9:47 a.m., 9 days post-fire. Morning came with Emma's particular brand of chaos cartoons playing at volume the smell of burnt toast, her small voice singing about pterosaurs with operatic enthusiasm. Diane woke on Cole's couch, disoriented, every muscle aching from adrenaline crash and terror deferred. Emma appeared in the doorway holding a bowl of cereal that threatened to overflow with every step. Dad says you got attacked by bad people. That's really mean. Cars are for driving, not for hurting. The child logic was so pure it made Diane's throat close. You're absolutely right. Want cereal? I made extra. Emma set down the bowl, which turned out to be intended for Diane. Cheerios floating in too much milk presented with the gravity of someone offering a 5-star meal. Dad's on the phone with the police lady. He sounds mad, but his quiet kind of mad, which is actually scarier. Diane accepted the cereal, managed to swallow a bite despite her stomach's protest. Through the thin walls, she could hear Cole's voice clipped and controlled, discussing tactical options with Detective Chen. Planning, strategizing, turning his engineering mind toward the problem of keeping her alive. Emma climbed onto the couch beside her, studying Diane with unsettling intensity. Are you gonna die? I hope not. Me too. You're nice, and you make Dad smile different, like before Mom died. The observation came matter of fact without judgment. He smiles with his whole face now, not just his mouth. Your dad's a good man. The best. Emma leaned against Diane's shoulder with the casual intimacy of children who hadn't learned to fear closeness. When people try to hurt you, it makes me scared. But Dad says scared is just your body getting ready to be brave. So I'm practicing being brave for you. Diane set down the cereal before Emma could see her hand shake. This 8-year-old child who'd lost her mother and sister, who carried a broken heart in her chest, was choosing courage on behalf of a stranger. The generosity of it was staggering. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means more than you know." Cole appeared in the doorway, a phone still in hand, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. But Emma was right. When he looked at Diane, something in his expression shifted, softened, became more than just protective instinct. "Chen wants to move forward with the sting operation. Use Kyle as bait to get Richard's full confession on tape." Kyle agreed. He's terrified, but he knows Richard will kill him too if given the chance. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator. Emma looked between them, absorbing adult conversation she was too young to fully understand. Is the bad man gonna get caught? Yeah, Bug, he is. Cole's certainty was absolute. "I promise." "Good, because Miss Diane needs to stay alive so she can come to my surgery and hold Mr. Patches while I'm asleep." The casual assumption that Diane would be present, that she belonged in their small circle of family, made something crack wide open in Diane's chest. She'd spent 15 years avoiding emotional entanglement, believing connection was weakness. And here was this child offering love like it cost nothing. Maybe it didn't. Maybe Diane had been calculating wrong and all along. Monday through 18 p.m. 9 days, 5 hours post-fire. The plan came together with frightening speed. Kyle Harrison sat in Detective Chen's office, looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Dark circles under his eyes. Hands that couldn't stay still. The particular terror of someone who'd realized he was trapped between prison and murder with no good options. "Richard has leverage on me." His voice cracked on the admission. "Evidence of hacking I did 5 years ago. Corporate espionage. If it comes out, I'm looking at federal charges. He used it to force me into installing the spyware, creating the fake identities, facilitating the embezzlement." Cole watched from behind one-way glass, studying Kyle's body language with the analytical detachment of someone trained to read systems. Fear was genuine. Regret seemed real. But was it enough? "You participated in attempted murder." Chen's voice held no sympathy. "Twice. That's not something we can just overlook." I know what I did, but I never wanted anyone dead. Richard said it was just surveillance, just insurance. I didn't know about the car sabotage until after the fire. Didn't know about the hitman until you arrested Richard and found the contract." Kyle's hands pressed flat against the table, trying to stop their trembling. "I'll testify. I'll give you everything. Account numbers, communications, the whole embezzlement structure. Just please. I can't go to prison. My sister depends on me. She's disabled. Without my income, we're offering a deal." Chen slid papers across the table. 18 months plus probation. You testify against Richard. You wear a wire. You help us get his confession on tape so complete there's no chance of acquittal. What do you need me to do? Exactly what we tell you, nothing more, nothing less. Chen's expression held no warmth. You deviate from the script, the deal's off. Understand, Kyle signed with shaking hands. Cole stepped into the interrogation room, and Kyle flinched like he expected violence. Voice. "Mr. Bennett, I'm sorry for everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but save it." Cole's voice could have cut glass. "You helped someone try to kill Diane. You're only cooperating now because it benefits you. I don't need your apologies. I need you to do exactly what Detective Chen says so we can put Richard away for the rest of his life." "I will, I swear." "You'd better, because if you screw this up, if Diane gets hurt, because you couldn't follow simple instructions, prison will be the least of your problems." The threat hung in the air, unambiguous and deadly serious. Kyle swallowed hard, nodded. Chen pulled Cole aside after they'd fitted Kyle with a wire. "You can't threaten witnesses, even ones who deserve it." Wasn't a threat, just a statement of fact. Cole looked through the glass at Kyle, who was being coached by 2 officers on exactly what to say. "He's weak, easily manipulated. Richard used that. Now we're using it. As long as he performs, I don't care about his motivations." Chen pulled up a map of Sullivan's Automotive on her tablet. "We'll have tactical teams positioned here, here, and here. Sharpshooters on adjacent rooftops. If Richard so much as twitches wrong, we take him down. He won't come alone. We're counting on it. The more evidence of conspiracy, the stronger our case. Cole studied the tactical layout, his military training, automatically identifying vulnerabilities. What if he decides to cut his losses? Take Kyle out and run. Then we arrest him for murder instead of attempted murder. Either way, he's done. And the simplicity of it should have been reassuring. But Cole had learned that plans fell apart when they met reality. Variables multiplied. Chaos intervened. People died in the gap between strategy and execution. I want to be there. At the shop. Absolutely not. You're a civilian. This is law enforcement business. It's my shop, my evidence. Cole caught himself before saying, my Diane. But Chen heard it anyway. She matters to you. I get it. But you being there puts everyone at greater risk. Let us do our job. Cole wanted to argue, wanted to insist on protecting what was his. But Chen was right. His presence would complicate an already dangerous operation. And if something went wrong, Emma needed him alive. Fine, but I want real-time updates. And the second Richard's in custody, I want confirmation. Deal. Monday is 7:47 p.m. 9 days, 9 hours post-fire. The text went out precisely on schedule. Kyle to Richard. Bennett found everything. Evidence traces directly to you and me. He's taking it to the FBI tomorrow. We need to destroy the car's computer tonight. Last chance. Cole watched the message send from Chen's tactical command center, 3 blocks from Sullivan's automotive. Around him, monitors showed live feeds from a dozen hidden cameras, thermal imaging from rooftop positions, audio from Kyle's wire picking up every breath. Richard's response came within minutes. Where Bennett's working late at Sullivan's shop. He'll be alone after 9. Meet me there. We wipe the system, maybe sabotage his backups. Too risky. It's prison or this, your choice. The weight stretched like razor wire. Cole's hands clenched and unclenched muscle memory from years of precision, work seeking outlet. Beside him, Chen directed her team with quiet efficiency, positioning officers, confirming sight lines, running contingency scenarios. 8:54 p.m. Richard's car appeared on surveillance 2 blocks from the shop. Black BMW tinted windows, driving cautiously but not suspiciously. He parked on a side street, killed the lights, sat for a full minute before emerging. Target acquired. Chen's voice carried through the tactical channel. All units hold position. Wait for my signal. Richard walked to Sullivan's back entrance like he had every right to be there. Tried the door, found it unlocked as planned, slipped inside without hesitation. The camera feeds showed Kyle in the main bay laptop connected to the Valkyrie's diagnostic port, pretending to work. Tension visible in every line of his body. Richard approached from behind, silent as smoke. How long? Kyle jumped convincingly. Jesus, give me a heart attack, why don't you? How long to wipe the system? 10 minutes if the protocols work, 30 if they don't. Kyle's hands moved across the keyboard, apparently running deletion scripts. You really think killing her was the best solution? There had to be another way. 23 million in embezzlement doesn't allow for alternatives. Either she disappears or we spend 30 years in federal prison. Richard's voice held no remorse, just calculation. The audit would have exposed everything. This was the only option. We could have run, new identities, South America, somewhere without extradition. Run and spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder while I built something here. I'm not abandoning it because some ice queen CEO thinks she can push me around. Cole watched Richard pace hands in his expensive coat pockets. Something about the way he moved set off alarms. Richard wasn't here to destroy evidence. He was here for something else. Chen, something's wrong. What do you see? He's too calm. Kyle's giving him exactly what he wants. Cooperation, evidence, destruction. But Richard looks like he's waiting for something. On screen, Richard pulled out his phone, checked the time, then smiled. Kyle, you did good work. Really excellent. Thanks. I think the deletion's almost... Richard pulled a gun from his coat pocket, aimed it at Kyle's center mass with practiced steadiness. But I don't need you anymore. Kyle froze, hands up, wire transmitting every spike of his terror. What are you doing? Cleaning up loose ends. You think I don't know about your immunity deal, about your cooperation? I've had people watching you since your first meeting with Detective Chen. Richard, please. We can figure this out. We're past figuring things out. Richard's finger tightened on the trigger. Nothing personal, just business. Go, 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 go! Chen's voice exploded through tactical comms, but Richard was faster. The gunshot cracked through the shop like thunder. Kyle screamed, twisted, fell. Blood bloomed across his shoulder where the bullet had caught him. Cole was moving before conscious thought, out of the command center, running towards Sullivan's with every ounce of speed his body possessed. Chen's shouted orders faded behind him. All that mattered was stopping Richard before he could kill Kyle and disappear into whatever escape plan he had arranged. The shop's main door stood open. Cole burst through, saw Richard standing over Kyle's fallen form gun, raised for the finishing shot, saw tactical teams converging from side entrances, saw the moment Richard realized he was trapped and decided to take everyone down with him. Their eyes met, recognition flared. Richard swung the gun toward Cole. This is your fault, all of it. Drop the weapon. 4 officers' weapons drawn, flashlights blinding. Drop it now. Richard didn't drop it. His finger tensed on the trigger, death a split second away. Time fractured. Cole's body moved on instinct, 15 years of DOD training, muscle memory from classified facilities where hesitation meant compromise. But underneath the training, something else stirred. The accident. Rachel's scream, metal folding, the smell of blood and coolant. Not again. Not another person dying because I'm too slow. He grabbed a crowbar from the nearest workbench. His hands shook PTSD, triggering adrenaline spiking wrong. The throw went wild, rotation off, but metal connected with Richard's wrist anyway, more luck than skill. The gun discharged, bullet sparked off concrete. Richard stumbled. Cole's vision tunneled. He was in the car again. Rachel beside him, the truck's headlights blinding. Lily screaming. His hands frozen on the wheel, too exhausted to react fast enough. Move. Move. He closed the distance before Richard could recover, tackling him into a rolling tool cabinet that collapsed under their combined weight. They hit the ground in a tangle of limbs and fury. Richard was bigger, heavier, fighting with the desperation of a cornered animal. Cole's fist connected with Richard's jaw, once Rachel's face-eyes closing twice. Lily's scream cutting off, feeling bone crunch against his knuckles. Bennett, stand down! Chen's voice cut through the red haze. Hands pulled him back. Police voices shouting orders. Richard face down on concrete, arms wrenched behind his back, handcuffs, snapping closed with metallic finality. Cole staggered sideways, legs giving out. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The flashback receded slowly, leaving him gasping on the shop floor, vision clearing enough to see Kyle bleeding but alive. EMTs already working on him. You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and about 15 other charges we'll think of later. Chen's voice was ice as she read Richard his rights. Cole sat heavily on the concrete, adrenaline draining away, leaving only exhaustion and delayed terror and the horrible understanding of how close he'd come to dying. His hands shook violently. Blood from split knuckles dripped onto the floor. He'd attacked an armed man. Could have been killed. Almost was killed. Left Emma orphaned because he couldn't stay out of danger. Breathe, Bennett. You did good. Chen crouched beside him. Stupid, but good. Is Kyle going to make it? Paramedics say yes. Bullet went through clean. He'll testify. Richard was being dragged to a patrol car, screaming threats that held no power now, promising lawyers and lawsuits and revenge that would never materialize. The sound faded as doors closed, sirens wailed, and justice ground forward with mechanical inevitability. Cole's phone buzzed. Diane, Chen just called. You okay? His fingers could barely type. Alive. Stupid, but alive. Thank God. I'm coming to the shop. No, stay where you are. It's over, but let Chen's team process the scene first. Cole, I need to see you. Need to know you're actually okay. He understood. Needed the same confirmation of her existence, her safety. Tomorrow. First thing, I promise. Tonight I just need to go home and hold my daughter and remember why taking stupid risks isn't an option. The delay in her response spoke volumes. Then, okay, tomorrow. But Cole, thank you for everything, for caring enough to be stupid. Anytime. Tuesday, 10:32 a.m., 10 days. 9 hours post-fire. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and bad decisions. Kyle lay propped against pillows, left shoulder bandaged, IV dripping pain medication. Detective Chen had positioned a guard outside protection and prisoner in equal measure. Cole stood at the foot of the bed studying the man who'd helped Richard try to kill Diane. Chen said, "You were talking. I wanted to hear it myself." Kyle's good hand twisted the bedsheet. "Richard stole 23 million, but there's more. Accounts I didn't know him about. Money going back 2 full years. Shell companies in the Caymans, bribes to 2 board members, blackmail against at least 4 other executives." The scope of Richard's corruption expanded like poison gas, not just embezzlement, not just attempted murder. A systematic dismantling of Harper Technologies' integrity. Why help him? Because he had evidence I'd hacked a competitor's servers 3 years ago. Corporate espionage. I needed money. Thought I was untraceable. But Richard found me. Recruited me specifically because he could control me. Kyle's voice cracked. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I gave Chen everything. Every account. Every password. Richard's going away for a long time." Cole turned to leave, paused at the door. "Your sister, the one who depends on you. Is that even real?" "Yeah, Maria, she's got MS. Can't work. Without me," Kyle's breath hitched. "She'll end up in some state facility. So yeah, I'm going to prison. But at least I'll be alive to take care of her after." The desperation was real. The fear genuine, but it didn't absolve anything. "Chen says you're testifying in 2 weeks, grand jury." "I'll be there. I'll tell them everything." Kyle's voice strengthened. "Richard Vance is going to spend the rest of his life in a cell. I'll make sure of it." Cole left without responding. Justice would proceed on its own timeline. Richard would face trial. Kyle would serve his sentence. And somewhere in the margins, lawyers would argue while the people they'd tried to kill got on with living. 3 months later, January. The verdict came on a Tuesday morning in January. Richard Vance guilty on 14 counts. Sentenced to 32 years federal prison, no possibility of parole before 25. Kyle Harrison's testimony had been devastating. Every account number, every forged signature, every conversation where Richard had planned murder like it was just another business transaction. But that Tuesday was important for another reason. Emma's heart surgery, Seattle Children's Hospital, Dr. Sarah Patel performing the procedure for the 217th time, 98% success rate. Cole sat in the waiting room holding Diane's hand while surgeons opened his daughter's chest and repaired the hole that had been trying to kill her since birth. 4 hours stretched like years. Cole couldn't eat, couldn't read, could only sit and breathe and pray to gods. He wasn't sure he believed in that Emma would survive the knife where Rachel and Lily hadn't survived the crash. When Dr. Patel emerged still in scrubs, Cole stood so fast his chair scraped loudly. The surgeon's smile was exhausted but genuine. "She did beautifully. Repair was textbook. She's in recovery now. Should be awake in about an hour." Cole's legs stopped working. He sat down hard, head in hands, shoulders shaking with sobs he'd been holding back for 3 years. Diane held him while he fell apart, her own tears falling into his hair. "She's okay. Your baby's okay." They let him into recovery first. Emma lay tiny against white sheets, breathing tubes still in place, monitors beeping steady reassurance. Cole took her small hand and felt her pulse steady, strong, no longer racing to keep damaged chambers pumping. Her eyes opened. "Found him." Tried to speak around the tube. "Don't talk, bug. You're okay. Surgery's done. Your heart is fixed." Tears leaked from Emma's eyes. Happy tears, Dr. Patel said later. Pain medication keeping her comfortable. But Cole saw his daughter's relief, her understanding that the broken thing inside her had finally been repaired. February, 3 months post-verdict. Frank Sullivan called in early February, his voice carrying the weight of decisions made final. "Need to talk to you about something." They met at the shop after hours. Frank looked older than his 55 years, tired in the way that came from 3 decades of hard work catching up all at once. "I'm retiring. Doctor says my back can't take another Seattle winter. Wife wants Arizona. Play golf, visit grandkids." He paused. "I want you to buy the business." "Frank, I can't offer, payment plan. You run the place, pay me a percentage for 10 years and it's yours." Frank's grin was sly. Unless you'd rather I sell to that corporate chain, let them turn Sullivan's into Express Lube number 47. That's not fair. Life's not fair, but this offer is. Think about it. Cole did think about it. Diane solved it with typical directness. Partnership, equal investment, Bennett Harper Automotive. We run it together. I handle strategy and finances. You handle operations. Frank gets his retirement. Everyone wins. You'd give up being CEO. Lauren's more than capable. The board respects her. And honestly, I'm tired. Tired of proving myself. Tired of building wealth I don't enjoy. Her eyes shone with vision. I want to build something that matters. A shop that helps people who can't afford help. A nonprofit model. A legacy measured in lives improved. We could call it Second Chances Auto Repair. Cole thought about all the times he'd needed help and couldn't afford it. All the single parents whose cars broke down and derailed everything. I think Rachel would have loved it. Then let's do it. They presented the proposal to Frank the next day. He read through projections and mission statements, finally extended his hand. Deal on one condition. Name it. I get to be there for the grand opening. Saturday, late February grand opening. The renovation took 6 weeks instead of 3 months. Diane's connections and Cole's determination compressing timelines. They kept the soul of Sullivan's intact but expanded. Added training rooms, created a community space. Installed solar panels, painted the exterior warm blue-gray that made a 60-year-old building look welcoming. Emma designed the logo a wrench crossed with a gear, because fixing things fixes people too. The grand opening fell on a Saturday cold and clear, with 200 people crowding the parking lot. Local news crews, city council members. Travis's truck was first through the door, 20 years old, barely running. Cole had insisted. Free of charge, full restoration. That's what friends do. They spent the day repairing cars for families who'd been waitlisted, single mothers, veterans, teenagers learning that mistakes were fixable with education and second chances. By evening, Cole's back ached and his hands were raw and his heart felt fuller than it had in years. Diane found him in Bay 7, the same bay where they'd fought and flirted and started something neither had planned. Good day. Best day, we helped 17 families, set up payment plans for 8 more, enrolled 6 kids in our youth program. Cole grinned. We're going to change lives here. We already are. She pulled him toward the office. Emma was inside arranging dinosaur figurines on the desk, then promptly fell asleep in the chair, exhausted by excitement. Cole, I need to show you something. Diane led him to a workbench. On it sat a small wooden box. She opened it to reveal a ring fashioned from gears and spark plug ceramic. Industrial art, mechanical beauty, a perfect representation of turning broken things into something precious. I made it. Travis helped with the metalwork, but I designed it. Diane's hands shook slightly. Cole Bennett, you taught me that life is an engine. It needs fuel purpose, air hope, and spark love. You gave me all 3 when I'd forgotten how to look for them. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Cole stared at this woman who'd learned to use a plasma torch to make him a proposal gift. At Emma sleeping because she trusted them to protect her while vulnerable. Yes, obviously yes. I love you and your terrible coffee and your stubborn determination to prove you can change oil despite all evidence to the contrary. I'm getting better. You drained the transmission fluid last week. They laughed and Cole slipped the ring onto his finger. It fit perfectly. Emma stirred open, sleepy eyes. Did she ask yet? I said yes. Good. Can I be the flower girl? Can we have a dinosaur theme? One thing at a time, Bug. August, 6 months later. The wedding happened at Brooklyn Botanical Garden, where Rachel's ashes had been scattered 3.5 years earlier. Cole had agonized over the location. Travis had set him straight. Rachel loved you. She'd want you happy. She'd want Emma to have a mother. 50 people bore witness. Emma served as both flower girl and ring bearer. Mr. Patches carried in a special satchel. Travis stood as best man, Lauren as maid of honor. Emma's speech came before the vows written in careful 8-year-old handwriting. Today we make more light. Mom and Lily were lights that went out, but Dad and Diane are new lights, and Mr. Patches and me are lights too. So we're not replacing the old lights. We're just making more, making enough light so nobody has to be in the dark anymore. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Cole's vows were simple. Diane, you taught me that being broken isn't the end, that sometimes the best things are built from pieces that didn't fit anywhere else. You taught Emma about good things lists. You taught me that loving again doesn't mean forgetting. I promise to always answer my phone at 2 a.m., to keep teaching you which fluid goes where, to build a life Emma can be proud of, to be worthy of the second chance you gave me. Diane's vows made him cry. Well, you gave me a spark plug and told me it was about basic principles. I kept it on my desk for months thinking it was a nice metaphor, but I was wrong. It was an instruction manual. You were teaching me how to rebuild myself from components I thought were worthless. You showed me that power isn't measured in dollars, that the most valuable things are small hands holding yours while you watch cartoons. I promise to love Emma as fiercely as you do, to never make you feel small for choosing family over ambition, to be the fuel to your spark, and together we'll keep our engine running forever. They kissed while Emma cheered and Mr. Patches watched, and somewhere in the universe, Cole chose to believe Rachel and Lily were cheering too. 1 year later, final scene. Bennett Harper Automotive thrived. 43 families served last month. Emma healthy running playing soccer with the abandon of someone who'd forgotten sickness. Diane's hair in messy ponytails. Cole's hands always stained despite expensive soap. Cole found Diane in the office doing bookkeeping. Emma was on the floor with dinosaurs creating elaborate prehistoric dramas. Hey, got a minute? For you always. I've been thinking about your good things list. Diane pulled out the notebook worn from handling. 247 items. What's number one? She read without hesitation. The day a mechanic gave me a spark plug and changed my life. Cole sat on the desk edge, pulled her between his legs. Mine's longer now, too. Want to hear number one, obviously. The day a woman with a declined credit card let me pay for coffee and accidentally became my whole world. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her mouth. Thank you for the coffee, for the second chance, for Emma's surgery, for building this with me, for everything. Thank you for answering your phone that morning, for fixing my impossible car, for being brave enough to protect someone who'd been nothing but rude to you. Diane's hands linked behind his neck, for teaching me that life needs fuel, air, and spark to run, and that I'd been missing the spark for 15 years. Emma looked up from her dinosaurs. Are you guys being mushy again? Because that's gross, but also nice. Yeah, Bug, we're being mushy. Good. Mushiness means you're happy. Through the office window, Seattle spread out in shades of gray and green, rain starting to fall. The shop's neon sign flickered on Bennett Harper Automotive. We fix cars and people. Cole's phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. My car broke down and I can't afford repairs. I saw your mission statement online. Is it real? He typed back, it's real. Bring it in Monday. We'll figure something out together. Because that was what second chances meant. What spark plugs and good things lists taught you. That everyone deserved help. That building something beautiful from broken pieces wasn't just possible, it was the whole point. Cole Bennett had lost everything once, had spent 3 years believing survival was the best he could hope for. Then Diane Harper walked into his life unable to pay for coffee, and he'd learned that sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, disguised as something you didn't ask for. Now his engine ran smooth, all cylinders firing, fuel, air, spark, purpose, hope, love in perfect balance. And for the first time in 3.5 years, Cole could breathe without his chest hurting, could look at the future and see possibility instead of loss, could hold his daughter with both hands instead of one hand while the other clutched at grief. Life had taken Rachel and Lily, but it had given him Emma, had given him Diane, had given him this messy, complicated, beautiful second chance at actually living instead of just surviving. Diane rested her head against his shoulder. Emma hummed while arranging her dinosaurs. Rain drummed against windows. The shop phone rang with another person needing help they'd gladly give. Cole closed his eyes and felt the rhythm of it all. The engine of his life rebuilt, repaired, running better than it ever had. Not perfect, never perfect, but good, honest, real. And in the end, that was worth more than satellites, More than security clearances, more than all the corner offices and stock options in the world. It was worth everything.